This is Tony at Cover Magazine. I'm speaking to Alex Bromley, the executive for ethical at Constantia Group, and Alex, also the group health actuary. Alex, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Alex, we're talking about a very important topic. I just heard at the FBI conference, one of the presenters say that besides medical impact on people's lives and health, financial planning is probably the second most important. And here we're bringing two of these things together in terms of money and medical, legal, etc. So if you can maybe just tell us, first of all, what does medical legal insurance actually entail?
Sure. It's really to help ensure doctors stay in practice. So it's really to protect them when they're accused of medical negligence or if they've made a mistake in treating patients. So we have probably three elements of it. The one is medical legal advice. The second is the legal support through those processes. And then the third one is the financial support that you've touched on. So when there is a big claim demand, we do obviously insure and cover those claim payouts, and those can run into the millions. And I suppose that's where the financial protection steps in, so that we keep our doctors in practice.
Yeah. So, I mean, it must be a very difficult environment for doctors. What are some of the factors that have significantly impacted this medical legal space in the past 3 years?
Yeah, I'd say there was quite a big increase, from the 2000s to 2010s, up to probably close to 2016, 2017 even, where there was quite a lot of increase in litigation. So that's sort of the environment around a more litigious environment, lawyers focusing into this space. So that's probably that sort of demand. Since 2016, 2017 has probably been a bit more stable, but still still at a high level. So that does create a bit of risks and affordability challenges in this type of insurance. So that was up to that point. In parallel, probably in the last decade, it's social media. That's caused quite a bit of angst in the doctor space and how to handle that, because that's different to the old style where you'd get a claim or complaint through official routes. Social media opens up a wide audience and a different challenge. And then I suppose since 2020, it was really COVID-19, that pandemic, and that had a major impact. I mean, obviously, elective surgeries in particular were stopped, so practitioner income levels were significantly affected. They also needed to do expanded scope of practice, if you want to call it that. They able to move in or had to move into some telemedicine, or even just treating COVID patients, which was not their norm. So that was probably some of the big impacts there. And then the sort of the emotional strain on the doctors, the hours, the waiting in the queues, long queues, the financial strain. So all of those things have played effect. And I suppose a much longer period of time. COVID was from March last year, 2020, but it's been dragging on for quite a time now. So, and I think that plays through into the medical legal space because stretched doctors might make more errors. We needed to adapt the cover to include wider scopes of practice, telemedicine, etc. It brings different telemedicine, for instance, brings different risks to a normal doctor-patient relationship, and also the income levels. Medical malpractice insurance is expensive, so if your volumes drop, certainly COVID relief payments were a topic last year that we helped with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, seems like it's been a huge impact then over the last while, lots of factors, etc. So from an ethical perspective, in terms of your value proposition, how do you make a difference in the life of these things?
So I think the first one is we're sort of South African based. So we're a South African team based in South Africa, led by South African experts. We've got a team of clinicians, doctors, lawyers, and actuary, and we work quite closely with the sort of professional leadership organizations in the healthcare space. So that's our sort of big philosophy, is to help doctors in private practice, and we work with professional societies, and we locally based. Yeah, in parallel to that, we also the only South African regulated insurer to offer the sort of the gold standard product. That's what we call the occurrence-based product. The only other one is MPS, which is overseas based. So that we're very proud of. That does bring many risks to us in terms of the exposure, because it does cover a doctor holistically without gaps in cover. But at the same time, we strongly believe that's what the doctors need. They need a proper protective product. And probably the third one, we're sort of turning 5 this year in November, so we've been around. We've helped stabilize that distressed obstetrician market, working with professional societies and their leaders in stabilizing their premiums. So in the mid 2010s, that market was particularly hit by massive premium increases. And when we came in 2016, we really helped stabilize that. So, and we're now the market leader in the obstetrician space.
Brilliant. Alex, when we talk about healthcare, I mean, we obviously have private healthcare and we have public healthcare. And I would assume, and that's probably maybe not a correct assumption, that in the private sector you have much less problems with medico-legal than in the public sector. But maybe you can just enlighten me a little bit as to how that works.
Yeah, at a high level, you are correct. The public sector has, if you look at their volumes, certainly is more exposed to medical negligence claims, both in the volumes, the number of claims against their doctors and healthcare practitioners, as well as the size of those claims and the payouts. Certainly the payouts we've seen in the public sector have been very high relative to the private sector. So we do seem to have lower volumes, as well as the payouts are much more reasonable, although still large for the high-risk specialties. So I think that's at a high level, and then a bit more detailed. There is sort of similarities where the high risks are typically around births, particularly cerebral palsy babies. Those are probably the largest payout claims. So there we're somewhat aligned in terms of our highest risk exposures. But the public sector do seem to have a lot more of those relative to the private sector. The private sector's got probably a bit more diverse cases across surgical specialists, as opposed to just cerebral palsy babies and the birthing space. So that's a slight variation in private sector.
Alex, and then when it comes to the brokers and the distribution side of the product and the service that you offer, what does it take for a broker to get involved? Because this is a complicated environment. How do they manage that?
No, I think it is. I think we do need to recognize that it is a bit. The product itself and the environment is complex. It's not simple. So just to touch on that, the underwriting process up front is more complex. It's more like a commercial underwriting approach. You need to understand holistically the practice, the doctor, their patients, what procedures they do, etc. The ecosystem that they work in. So it is quite a complex underwriting process. Even the renewals, there is that underwriting renewal space is not just a simple renewal process. The claims process is more complex. It's really the start of a whole legal journey, and it takes quite a while, a number of years, potentially. So it's quite a different environment, and so really, therefore, I think the intermediary needs to be have an understanding of the environment, understanding the product. That's quite key, and to translate that into the record of advice and that upfront underwriting space is quite critical. And then also to be quite sort of have a bit of tenacity, because these doctors, particularly the specialists, are very busy. They don't like admin and underwriting questions and those type of admin kind of processes. So you do need to be a bit tenacious and understand the doctors and help them, because they're busy, and how to deal with them and to support the doctor through the processes. So it's probably a bit of understanding the specialist line, often we find intermediaries that have some kind of connection into the healthcare space. It could be through family or through the societies. They have a slightly better understanding of the environment. That's useful. And then that, as I mentioned, that tenacity and patience with the doctors to help them through this, to the insurance process.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds very complicated, but there usually with complexity comes opportunity as well. So I think if the brokers that make an effort can make an impact there. Alex, just to end off on the sort of lighter side of it and the more social impact side, obviously our doctors have gone, as you said, through a lot over the last 2 years. And not just looking after themselves, like most of us would have sort of started focusing on how we survive, etc. They have to make sure that we survive as their patients. How do we ever, I suppose, how do we really thank them for that? How do we say, you know, other than paying them?
Yeah, I'm sure they don't mind being paid, but the other route is, the 16th of November is Doctors' Day, so we've been celebrating that, and we sort of have a campaign where we really try to get the public involved to say their thank yous, to recognise their doctors and healthcare professionals as heroes, to share their stories. So we create the structure for that, the Doctors' Day webpage, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. Share your stories. We'll share them with the doctors. We'll give 5 lucky entrants 1,000 Rand each, just to encourage and make it more fun. And then for the doctors, we'll donate 10,000 Rand to the Healthcare Workers Care Network. So they're a non-profit organization that help doctors, particularly around their mental well-being and supporting the doctors in that space. So that's sort of our little bit of initiative that we're doing every November. So I'd really encourage the public to support us, support the doctors in that way.
Yeah, great initiative to get involved in, because it really did saved us over that period.
They really have, yes.
Yeah. Alex, thank you so much for your time. It was great chatting to you and learning more about the medical legal environment at the moment. So, yeah, thank you very much, and we'll see you on Doctors' Day.
Thank you. Keep well.
Great, thank you.